How might you boost your learning with ChatGPT? First, there's active recall. So, say I look for quizzes or topics covering photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Okay, so this information is kind of chunked up, so it's easier on the eyes. I could do this. A quiz on cellular respiration and photosynthesis could test you on the processes of both, the chemical equations for each, the roles of these molecules, organelles, etc., etc. So I could then say, to implement active recall, what's something that you might think could implement it well? You got self-testing, self-quizzing, flashcards. So let's try having ChatGPT make a quiz off of it. So let's say we make it 15 questions. Okay, so now you have a 15-question quiz comprising these concepts. But what if it's not up to your standard? Like, what if, say, you want it to be under like actual exam conditions? Like, say, if the quiz is multiple choice and ideally timed like, say, 30 minutes, then you could throw that scenario into ChatGPT and say this. And so it'll format it accordingly. You then take it in simulated exam circumstances, and so you'll be best prepared off for your quiz. And so yeah, here's this quiz. So I'll just go over the first two. So what are the two main processes involved in photosynthesis? So you have, I would guess light reaction and Calvin cycle. Name main stages of cellular respiration. I gotta check this one, but yeah. So goes over the equations, talks about ATP. Yeah, so this looks like a nice self-testing circumstance to go through in preparation. Now, what if I want to implement spaced repetition with this? We already got active recall, but if we pair that with spaced repetition, now we can really take our studying to the next level. So say using this information, I do something like this. I use this quiz to make a spaced repetition schedule so as to prepare for a hypothetical scenario, which in this case, a quiz in a week from today. So I do that. Okay, so I will go over this briefly. So this spaced repetition schedule has, so for day one, spend 10-15 minutes going through questions 1 through 5, active recalling the questions. So, and then day two, basically going over 6 through 10, active recalling it. And then over time, it'll actually have you do it again, but it paces you. So that way you're not just cramming in one go. And as a result, you will better retain the information. What if I have to have other classes going on around the same time? So say I have a econ quiz that's in 3 days from now, a math quiz that's in 5 days from now, as well as a quiz covering, well, this example I just went through, in a week from now. So what if, using the third principle of effective studying, which is interleaving, I'm asking it, use interleaving and create a corresponding schedule to help me effectively study these. So let's see what it comes up with. Oh, and just so you know, in case you don't already, interleaving is basically a effective studying concept in that if you just like study one concept in like the whole day for like one day, you're going to feel that you understand it better, but you're not going to learn as much or as effectively as, say, you study for, say, 30 minutes to an hour of one thing one day, and then you study a different subject following that for, say, 30 minutes to an hour, and then you switch to another subject, and then on and on and on. And then what happens is it feels like it's tougher because your brain hasn't really consolidated the information, but by being exposed to multiple angles of information, it actually long-term helps you consolidate memory formation and retention better. So that's just briefly what interleaving is. So what we have here is a schedule for how to implement interleaving. So say on day one, it basically says for you to review and practice problems related to economics for 1 to 1.5 hours. Afternoon, switch subjects to math, doing around the same thing but regarding problems. Day two, switching back into econ, and then doing some photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Okay. And then it just kind of keeps doing this and tells you about examinations coming up. And then, yeah. Next, we are going to be talking about particular scenarios to apply ChatGPT on. So let's say we apply it to essays. And so if I input this prompt to give me some popular topics to write an essay on, let's say I choose impact of social media on society. And so right here, what I just did was I basically said for it to write a essay based on my style, and I basically put an example of my style of writing right here. And so what you could actually do is to give it ChatGPT more chances to be accurate in how it expresses your style. It's better off to add as many examples of your writing style as possible. So I'd say 3 to 5 examples. Here I just put one of my writing style, which is okay. This is just to give a simple example. So let's see. We have, undoubtedly the influence of social media to contemporary society has been profound. Reflecting a digital era. Okay, it's actually pretty good. So you could probably come up with many creative ways to apply this to your writing. Maybe you could do it to, say, 1 paragraph at a time for, say, a 5-paragraph essay. But yeah, that's just a little bit on how to use it for essays. Okay, what if you want to apply ChatGPT to a math problem? So let's say we ask it to take a derivative, say sine of x squared plus 2. And so, right here, it tells us how to take the derivative, gives us the answer right here, and lists the chain rule as how to solve it. So you might be asking, if you're seeing how to do this for the first time, what is a chain rule? What if I'm looking at this for the first time? So what you could do, basically, is ask it to explain the chain rule. And you're probably better off giving context as to how you want to answer your question, because as much data as possible, that's how ChatGPT works. So I'm basically saying in context as if I'm learning for the first time. That's key. So the response is more tailored to you. So input that. And now right here, it tells you its fundamental concept of calculus, allowing you to take derivative of composite functions. So essentially what you have is you have a function within a function right here. So g of x in f, and then you take a derivative of the outside times the inside times the derivative of the inside. And of course, if this doesn't make sense, you could always ask it to clarify as if you're, say, a 5-year-old, something like that. You could get really creative with this. Okay, so far I've shown you simple stuff like essays, regular techniques, and math problems. But what if you're facing something tougher? You might be thinking, Noah, how do I apply this to something that I can't exactly copy and paste, something that's more complex? Well, here's an example. So last week I solved a problem that I had no idea of solving using ChatGPT in this way. So let me show you. So right here, you have an economics problem right here, this one in particular, part A of problem 3. And so it asks to solve this. Now, if I try to just copy and paste this whole thing into ChatGPT, it's not going to properly convert this into the prompt. And as a result, it's going to feed me back information that's more or less irrelevant. So what do I do to solve this if I have no idea what to do and I can't put this properly into ChatGPT? So what you do is you got this information here. You can't put that down, but you can put this down onto ChatGPT. That's certain. Also, you do know that you can also have it generate an alternative scenario. What do I mean by that? I mean this. So you copy and paste this prompt from here. And what I say below is, give me an example scenario that solves for this. So basically, I have it give me an example problem with this question. And so as a result, I can kind of pattern recognize with my brain to basically deduce, I could solve one scenario this way. This other is basically the same way, except different numbers. Knowing that, I can confidently say that I know how to solve the problem. So I do that. I put that in because you are going to often have these things where you can't copy and paste the whole thing properly in the ChatGPT. So then what you do, you try to give it enough information to generate out an example scenario that you can then use how it solves that and use its own algorithm slash method of solving to kind of solve the actual problem. That's typically how you solve these more complex problems. So what it shows here is, okay, so tells you about a consumer who seeks to maximize their utility. And then, okay, gives you this budget constraint. And then, okay, so I look at this right now and I think, okay, this is very wordy. I am not sure what's going on. So what you can do is basically say, okay, give me a simplified way of looking at it, an analogy, in other words, to kind of show me what's going on. So then I feed it that. So then, okay, in this case, it talks to you about a chef preparing a dish with different ingredients with a budget constraint. So then it does that. And what you now can form the picture of is a cooking scenario with abstract concepts like Marshallian demand, expenditure function, Hicksian demand, indirect utility function. So things that you can't really put in the tangible form, it takes a tangible scenario and you can kind of conceptualize it from there. Now, what if I want to clarify, I know how to solve the problem, but I don't want to just solve a problem for 20 minutes and then find out that I've been doing it the wrong way the whole time. That's just a waste of time, right? We want to clarify conceptually that we know what we're doing before we actually go through, plug and chug, solve the problem, right? So how do we do that without spending time actually solving the problem? What you do, and I actually do this quite a lot, is I try to, when I think I've conceptualized it, but I just want to make sure I kind of feed it what I think I know is going on, and then I ask it, is that right? So in this case, I tell it, so what you're saying is I plug in Marshallian demands to solve for indirect utility function, move variables in that equation to isolate income, plug that into income for Marshallian to solve for Hicksian of each variable. And I say, is that right? And right here it says, fantastic summary. You've captured the essence quite well. So knowing that ChatGPT has my support and how I conceptualize it, I can now confidently be reassured that I can just go and solve the problem, and any mistake I make, it's not conceptual, it's due to probably some mathematical thing, which is totally okay. At least I know that I will not have to waste 20 minutes solving a problem. I hope you found this video useful. Ciao.